Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Citizens Corner. Of course, my name is Jarvis, and with me, as always, is my bastion of common sense, Lightning Dragon. So let's go ahead and get into some of your questions. There's some really good ones this week. Had to trim a couple of them down because they were really long, but kind of tried to keep to the crux of the questions themselves. So, first one I have here is from Ike Evans. Boy, I probably butchered that all to hell. He says, "Hello, my question is, when will developers slim down and make basic key bindings for joystick users? Newbie and some senior players are catching hell as trying to reconfigure their joysticks. Most of these key bindings are redundant and confusing." Well, I think you're going to maybe not see so much adjustments to this until after 2.0 comes in, after they kind of get closer to finalizing all the systems in the game.
Item system 2.0, just being
clear. A lot of games out there have preset key bindings for all different kinds of joysticks, and with the amount of controls that are available for Star Citizen, it might be wise for them to have a special way of kind of doing like left hand bind, right hand bind. What controller are you using? Because, let's face it, you can play with about any combination you can think of. Now, there are some binds in there already. I think there's some already for like the X52 and things like that, where you can just basically...
The Warhog might be in there as well.
Yeah, so there's some, but obviously with the amount of joysticks and companies and things out there, it's going to be hard to set something for everyone. So there's going to be those people that no matter what are going to have to set their own custom key binds and configurations. There's just no way around it. There's just too many brands, there's too many options. And considering the fact that no one forces you to use anything on any particular hand, Star Citizen might leave that still in your hands, your own key bindings by the time the game launches. We'll have to see. Punk Hunter 25 says, "I absolutely love the endgame ships like the Starfarer and Reclaimer. I already have a few of them, but I'm afraid that I won't have anything to work towards in the PU. At least I can work towards making a larger corporation." You see, the thing about a sandbox game is that there is no end goal. Yes, you can have the large ship. Okay, now you just have the ability to make money faster. You can grow that organization. Like I always like to say is that, who are you more afraid of? Boba Fett or the guy that can hire 10 Boba Fetts? So, for me, when I look at what's my goal with all my ships is to help people, to help them achieve what they want in the game. So it really comes down to, what do you want to get out of Star Citizen? Is it a social thing for you? Do you just want to hang out with friends and do missions? Are you looking at being the PvP god of the universe? Are you looking at being a renowned bounty hunter, explorer? Having one of these top-end ships doesn't define you as having beat the game or finished the game. There's always going to be something to do. But like any sandbox game, you have to play with the sand. You just can't sit there passively expect things to happen. You have to make it happen. You have to decide what you're going to do and do it.
Not to mention the fact that these ships that we have are basically basic frames. They're basically, just a basic ship. So while, like, I have an Orion, right? The Orion is the end of the line, unless they change their minds, for mining ships. It can do any type of ore, in massive bulk. The Prospector is more for there's a small thing of gold here and I can get to it easier. Where if you detect it in like the Orion, it's like, hey, there's gold in that rock, and you just turn the whole ship and you just obliterate the rock. Okay, we got it. I mean, we got a bunch of other stuff we don't care about, but whatever. But the thing is, there's upgrade systems, there's going to be different shields, possibly different armor, like crew stations, like different CPUs and things. And there's going to be all this stuff that's not in the game yet. And that's what Item System 2.0 is going to be, different shields. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. And there's going to be different, like, styles or tiers. And so even if you have, like, a Starfarer or a Starfarer, or did I just say Starfarer twice?
Maybe. But they're going to allow you to do modifications on equipment too, so you can spend your time personally upgrading your gear. Plus, look at all the exploration and things that are out there. Just the fact that they said that on one moon alone, that if every player was standing in a row, every backer was standing in a row around the circumference of one of the moons, that no player would even see one another. Now, if you can't find enough to do even on one moon with that much area to mess around with, sandbox games may not actually be something that's your cup of tea. That's why a lot of people like the theme park games. There's a lot of popularity behind those, between fixed story, fixed lore, follow the mission chain, get to the end. So some people, that's a better game. I like both. But sandbox games, as I said, they're really up to you. It doesn't matter if you have an Aurora or if you have an Idris. In the end, what you do and how you do it is in your hands. Michael Tarantolo says, can you guys do a video on vehicle ship customization? In my opinion, I think they should do it like in GTA, where you have to go to a special location to add an upgrade. Also, what do you think of enhanced modularity, considering every time it's brought up, people always go into the complexities of the ship pipeline, but I doubt CIG is going to skimp on customization. Well, Lightning and I have talked a little bit about this. We did in the past several comparison videos, and the reason we haven't done a whole lot more is that with Item System 2.0 coming out, a lot of the way that ships are going to be, a lot of the ways they're going to interact, the parts you can get for them, all that, it's going to change. And so we're kind of holding off. We're waiting to see how all the ships have changed after Item System 2.0. And yeah, upgrades and things like that, I think you shouldn't be able to, in the middle of space, suddenly pull a big blaster out of your rear end and slap it on. Oh, here's the upgrade, and do it like that. Yeah, you should have to go to repair shops and things like that.
I'm pretty sure they've already said that you will have to go to a place where they do this equipment, because you don't have the setup to do it. So if you go to a station or a planetary landing center and you're like, okay, I want this cargo. Okay, well then they load the cargo and you have this loading time where you say, I want to modify your ship. And this counts for your hangar as well. So if you're in your hangar and you're like, okay, I want to change all these guns around, basically you have a worker team or whatever that comes in and modifies the ship. You don't like right now, you just walk up and you just say, I want to put this on. But what they've talked about in the game is this actually being a time thing. So you might actually want to have multiple ships, this is my scanning Hornet. I'm just using the Hornet as an example, but this is my combat Hornet, because it would take too long to switch between the loadouts before a mission would a timer would run out or something.
Yeah, and right now we see kind of an early system. Like right now, if you want to change out your equipment in the persistent universe, you have to be landed on a landing pad somewhere to do it. Now, of course, the systems that they want in the end are much more complex. They talked about loading and unloading cargo by hand and having NPCs actually do it. So when you get a mission to deliver cargo, you have to wait for them to load it. Right now, with 3.0, from what it looks like, is you get cargo at a mission, it just loads it into your ship automatically. It just poof, it's there. These are initial systems. These are things that are just placeholders until the final product. Functional ones, which is what you want. You can't test a lot of these things without first creating a basic functionality. They'll add the detail and the depth to that later, like as he talks about repair crews or whatnot, the time it takes to move these items around. But yeah, I really think they're going to be restricting some of those things to a real location that can actually handle them, because that's their whole idea, is immersion and realism. And as I said, you just can't pull out magical blaster out of your bag of holding and slap it on the side of your ship, because that's not how the game's going to work. William Vandy, should we really take what they are saying, that literally they are saying that one bed per person on board to log out? Or are they saying you can log out and log back in at any ship that has a bed in its design? Well, from when they were talking about it a while ago, what they kind of said was this. If someone was to log out in a bed, say you had 2 beds in a ship, and someone went to a bed and logged out, they would be logged out, but you would see their character like in the bed, laying there, so someone else couldn't actually go into the bed and occupy it, or an NPC does the same thing. So I think they're quite literal when they say one bed, one person. That could cause some issues, but when you look at ships, for example, when you look at like the updated Cutlass, you're like, wow, why would anyone want a freelancer when you can get what this Cutlass can do? It can carry vehicles, it's bigger now, it carries a good amount of cargo. But then you say, okay, well, the freelancer has, for example, 4 beds, and it can support a larger crew more effectively on a longer run. So particularly something like a Freelancer Max or a Cutlass Black or Cutlass Blue, if you have more people with you, you may want to take that. Because if it's literally one person, one bed, it really just kind of puts you in a position where you have to consider that crew. You do. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in a situation where your ship becomes persistent after you've logged out. And either it's just going to keep your ship out there, or it's going to eventually at some point in time send you back to a station that's the last one you docked at, or whatever's nearest. However they decide they're going to do it. But
they seem pretty adamant on like this is the max crew because of beds and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it's probably going to come down to just balance reasons. I mean, when 3.0 hits, or 3.5 or whatever variant of the PU we're playing with, and it gets to the point where it's like, okay, it's too hard to do such and such because of lack of beds or lack of crew stations. They may change it. They may like cut back a little bit. Like, okay, yeah, we realize that it's not fun because of X reasons or Y reasons is bad, and they may change their mind. We're just kind of too early in the game for some of these systems to really know how they're going to play out.
The one problem I have with the one bed, one person thing is that I remember a long time ago them talking about how they, in some respects, some ships were treated a little bit like submarines, and that you would have, for example, 4 crew and 2 beds because they'd work and sleep in shifts. And that, to me, seems contradictory to the idea of you need to have 4 beds for 4 people. So the problem I have with that is that if it was a real world scenario, then sleeping in shifts would work. But because it's a game, I mean, you could have one guy that's logged out and you got 1 bed in your ship and it's 2 people, right? And suddenly, I don't know, let's just say your house catches fire. I don't know, just throw that out there. You got to leave the house, right? Or whatever. And you got to log out of the game. And now you can't do it because your friend logged out in the bed first. And not only does your house burn down, but your ship gets blown up because it's persistent. You're just having a really bad day. But yeah, it's one of those things that, to me, because it's a game and it's not real life, they need to consider that real life things happen, and sometimes you just got to get off the game now, and you just can't wait to fly back to a port for an hour for whatever reason. Sometimes parents will be playing the game and the kid comes in with a skinned knee. You got to get off the game, and what do you do? So they're going to need to consider all that, because there's going to be, I think there's a lot of older players playing Star Citizen, and they have families, they have jobs, they have lives, and they can't be hamstrung like that. And if they are going to be, then they're going to have to choose a ship that's going to work for that potential situation. Grazania says, I have a question for the next Citizen's Corner. Do you think that slavery and smuggling of alien, exotic plants, animals, primitive sentients will be in game? And a little trim here, but also, do you think kidnapping will be implemented? Okay, well, I think they'll probably allow smuggling of plant life, animals, and things like that. Slavery, I think CIG will probably avoid it. You're kind of walking into a political hotbed on that. I think a lot of games want to avoid politics. Realistically speaking, evil people do evil things, but I don't know if they're going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Kidnapping, I can see that being a possibility because of the fact that we have a bounty system they're going to be implementing, and that involves you basically capturing another player, NPC, putting them in a cell, locking them up. So, I mean, what's the difference between that and you walking up to some random stranger and pointing a gun at them, forcing them into your cell, or player or whatnot, and then demanding money to get them back or have them released? That seems more like a meta game thing, something that people would just kind of do. So I don't think kidnapping is going to be an impossibility, but slavery, I don't think they're going to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, in in Eve they had slaves, but the way they did it in Eve, I don't know if you have played Eve, not you, Jars, but the question. But there was, I think it was Amar had absolutely no problem with slavery, but like everybody else is like, whoa, slaves, and they were treated as like trying to think of the word here, basically not allowed. And
yeah,
but Eve was never very connected personally. I mean, eventually we did get shipped at like avatars, play people, but Eve was very, very much like a person, a marine, a slave. Is just the same as ammo.
It's basically
fuel.
it's an item. But in Star Citizen, you got to be looking at an NPC sitting in your cells,
or
it's
very much
it's a little bit more personal.
To reality.
Yeah, it's much more personal, and I think in a lot of games where it's just like a part of your inventory, it's one thing. When you're actually staring at this beat down alien that's crying in a cell, I don't know if people are gonna want to. I don't think they're gonna want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. All right, and finally we had a pretty good question here from Elf Footman. And it's a little bit of a long one. I trimmed it down just a little bit to get to the core of what I think the subject was. So let's get to it. Would love your comments on this. The starting 5 systems: Stanton, Nyx, Pyro, Odina, and Terra. Stanton will be done with 3.2 or 3.3. Nyx already has its main hero landing zone done in 3.0. They just have to move Delmar to the proper system and build the rest of the points of interest. Odin will be complete with Squadron 42. Pyro was teased on a recent Around the Verse showing off the Nebula work. Terra is the last one, and the city Terra Prime has also been teased and leaked for the past 4 years. Also, look at the star map. Pyro is basically all barren rocks with a single gas giant. Not even a hero landing zone. There's not much there that CIG can't put together in reasonable time. 5 systems. 2 are core UEE systems, also the 2 biggest systems after Sol. 2 are lawless systems. Odin is your frontier system on the front line with the Vandul, presumably with Squadron 42. You have 2 safer systems, 2 for pirates, and 1 high-risk system where to get to you have to pass through 2 lawless systems to get to. All are connected with jump points. All 5 have been worked on to some capacity recently too. You're probably right about these systems being the ones that are going to come in first because of what they have shown. The thing that I guess kind of bothers me a little bit when I look at this, and this comes back to the same kind of subject we brought back in recent time.
So subject that will never die.
It'll never die. Well, it's always going to be a debate, really. The problem I see here is that you talk about how that to get to the high end or the dangerous PvE sector, you've got to go through. You have to go through the PvP zones. And that's going to, I think, tick off some people who are just looking for high-end or very difficult PvE challenges that they've got to basically go through 2 zones that maybe they don't want to have to deal with to get there. I'm hoping that eventually as more and more systems open up, additional or alternative pathways open up that allow access to these locations without having to go through a playstyle that people don't want to go through. Just because people choose PvE doesn't mean they want it to be safe. They just want a certain type of gameplay. So it's important, I think, eventually that some sort of routes are opened up that allow them to have access to these without forcing them potentially into gameplay they're not looking for. Also, another reason you don't want to maybe go into a lawless zone is, once again, I think it's the insurance issue. I think they talked about going into lawless zones. There's a certain amount of risk inherent in that, just on your insurance status, if I remember right. So for those people looking for PvE, do they really want to go through 2 zones where maybe they can possibly have their ships uninsured by being, or not insured if they're destroyed in there? I don't know. We'll have to see how the insurance system comes out. We'll have to see how everything comes out, but you're probably right on the systems. My concern on that when I look at that is how to get to those really fun Vandul areas that maybe people want to get in there and have some chaos against the Vandul, and So yeah, I think it's a fairly balanced overall, having the 2 quote-unquote safe zones into 2 PvP zones and the 1 PvE. But the same way that they moved Delamar, basically, I think they should maybe, just temporarily speaking, for testing purposes, move or give access to, even if it's just a special jump point, from the safe zones into the dangerous PvE zones.
If they're going to do testing purposes, just make it so you can jump to any of the systems from any system.
Yeah, I mean, just to me, that seems like you can go ahead and revamp that later. You can go ahead and change that as more and more things come out. I think they said it was going to be 5 to 10 systems when the game launches. Now, some people were upset about that, but to be honest with you, I'm not. When you look at the fact that you have all these planets and moons and things that weren't there originally, there's a lot more content than we ever had planned on when they said like 50 systems at launch or whatever it was. So yeah, we've got a lot more content now than we ever did even then. So we'll have to see what they do with it. But I do hope they open it up for everyone, because until we're actually in the beta phase or getting closer to something that looks like release, I have no issues with them opening up non-canon pathways to try just to test the content. That's so important. That's so important to test the content. Alright guys, well, I'll go ahead and leave another link here at the end of this video for Lightning Dragon and my playthrough and exploration into Interstellar Rift. We've been doing a small series on his channel, trying out different systems and learning a lot. And every time we think we've learned more about the game, it turns out that there's more to learn. It's like an ogre. It's got layers. Or is that an onion? So yeah, we're really enjoying it. And as always, feel free to leave your comments and questions down below. And we will catch you next time on the Blastcast.